So someone's looking for a boyfriend, or I mean, well, roommate. A,
Well, it says friend and roommate, so
friend.
he is looking for a friend and roommate, and it is a boy that he's looking for, or a man, I should say, 25 to 55. So it is
Uh,
kind of like a boyfriend to.
yeah,
So
you just paying 500 a month to be a boyfriend.
no.
Too bad you're not white.
No, I'm 100% okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
You
I'm
know,
gonna find a place.
mm, there's always, I mean, just
No, no. The answer's no. It's a flat no. There's no nothing extra. It's good.
But with that said, welcome to Fib Nerds. Uh, I'm your host James, and well, being since
I'm the guest host for today.
yeah, and some of y'all who has been listening to the podcast for since the beginning, well, few of y'all who has been appreciate that.
Absolutely.
you know, Alex is the original. Uh, I guess my original co-host.
Right. I
Yeah.
think I did like the first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
We did Tao. Sorry to
Lock.
bother you.
Yeah,
Lock.
Uh,
And there's one other one I think.
we did the Black Klansman.
Yes.
I think it was something else. We did something else too. Well, outside the whole vacation, the little about us.
Right.
But
Yes, I do remember those. Um, yeah, those are the ones that stand out. I don't. I feel like I do feel like there's one more though.
yeah, it eludes me.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
I know at one point we're gonna do that anime.
yes, we did. We was gonna do that one.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it.
Paprika.
Yes. And I
Yes.
did watch that.
Me too. I have it actually.
Uh,
Well, I actually brought it just for. I watched it, then brought it because I thought it was that good.
yeah, it was good. It definitely
Yes.
was good.
Yeah.
Definitely a recommendation for anybody out there who is a
Is it?
fan.
Yeah, of anime.
Yes,
So Paprika, go watch it.
absolutely.
You know,
Well,
but
I mean, we're not being sponsored by them, so
yeah.
like let's get the sponsor first. I will tell somebody to go watch After Earth if I get sponsored. I have no chill when it comes to stuff.
I would tell people go watch Tao if if I get sponsored.
Whatever I will tell them to watch anything. I will tell them to watch Geely for money. And it doesn't even have to be that much money. Like I can be bought quite not for $500 though. For that apartment price. You guys don't.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no.
Oh, sure.
No. But yeah, today we are doing
The Irishman.
The Irishman. Yes, I coming in as the guest host. I said I could do this week, and you picked the film obviously because would have never picked a film. Like it's weird because James knows I have ADD and he chooses the longest film in the that's probably been made this year. I don't know if there's been a film that has been 3 hours and 29 minutes.
Well, besides Endgame,
Yeah, how long was that?
3 hours and let me pull up now.
This one was The Irishman was 3 hours and 19 minutes, and then it was an additional 10 minutes of credits, which people do count as being part of the runtime.
Oh well, yeah. Irishman has Endgame beat. Endgame was only 3 hours and 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know it did. Yeah. Nothing was as long as this film, but just because a film is long doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or that it's too much material. But I know this one was quite long.
It was almost as long as Titanic.
How long was Titanic?
3 hours and 30 minutes.
Oh wow, so it's right there.
Yeah,
I think I've seen Titanic all the way through once.
me too. As a
Um,
kid,
yeah, I was definitely younger. I think it was something that my mom wanted to see, and that's
my
the only
aunt,
reason
my
that
aunt
I
and me.
yeah, it's not something that I already know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Ship's going down.
drowning.
Oh wait, spoiler alert for those who don't know their history.
If y'all don't know about the Titanic now, then I can help y'all. What have y'all been? Yeah.
But yeah, that was honestly though that didn't feel as long. Um, I can't remember. I'm not going to say that because I can't remember.
Yeah, it been
This
so long.
film didn't necessarily feel. I did watch it in about 4 different sittings, but it wasn't like I really necessarily like got up and then did something else for like 3 hours and came back to it. It's more like a little break here and
Mhm.
there. I kind of watched it in 2 sittings. I watched the about 2 hours worth, and then I watched the last hour and a half. And there was definitely like at least maybe like a 3 hour gap between that. Wasn't necessarily because I got bored. It was more to do with the story was, in my opinion, and we'll get to this a little bit later on, but it was disjointed,
Mhm.
and so I didn't feel like I was watching a storyline from beginning to end. It felt like a lot of different like plot points, and it felt fine to just get up and just do something else, and then I came back to it.
Yeah. But The Irishman is the 2019 epic crime movie directed by Martin Scorsese,
Scorsese,
and is written by Steven Zazelian.
right? Well, he did the
Okay.
screenplay.
Yes.
It's based off of the book by Charles Brandt,
Yes.
and not the 19, I believe it's 78 movie The Irishman, which is a totally different film. I looked it up too because I was like, well, is this part of it? And it's no, it's not part of it.
Because the book is called I Heard You Paint Houses.
Right. And the 1978 film was about a family trying to make a go at it in the freight hauling business in Queensland, Australia.
Ooh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
different, totally different.
nothing similar. It actually makes you wonder why they went with the Irishman, you know, in this film.
Right. I don't know why they didn't just go with I Heard You Paint Houses.
I guess the Irishman does sound better.
It does for like I Heard You Paint Houses sounds more like something again that I would think well I shouldn't say again because we did talk a little bit about this beforehand yesterday after I watched it and got your thoughts, just some of your thoughts, just a quick kind of like superficial just what do you think type of thing. Well, I think I was just telling you what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
this film. But again,
Spoiler alert.
yes. Well, they were gonna know right away.
Yeah.
Um, but yes. I forgot what was I saying
You
before
were
that?
saying you don't like this movie.
No, before that.
Oh.
I mentioned something, but I can't remember what it was.
Uh,
Well, you know what?
the title of I was talking about the
Oh,
Irishman.
it sounded like something more that Quentin Tarantino would do. Like it has that type
Yeah.
of feel to it. I Heard You Paint Houses definitely
True.
has that type of feel. And there was one part in the beginning of the movie where they flashed the words "I heard you paint
Mhm.
houses" in black, and it definitely made me feel like it was a Quentin Tarantino esque
Mhm.
type of scene in that film. And then I was expecting a totally different movie.
Yeah.
Because going into this particular film, um, I didn't really know a lot about the plot. Basically, what I knew was it was extremely long because that was what everybody was
Advertised.
talking about, and that it was another Robert De Niro, Al Pacino vehicle, and like literally nothing else. I didn't know anything about the plot. And I knew, of course, Martin Scorsese had directed it. Normally, when that happens, the film itself, I don't find the film itself as good
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something. It's like they're trying to sell me on
The cast.
the cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oh, this Martin Scorsese directed it. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro is in it. And I'm like, well, what's the movie about? You know, and of course, like the length of it definitely was everywhere. Everybody was talking about the length of The Irishman. People were making jokes at the Academy Awards. You know, the comedians were making jokes about it. So that was definitely what I knew. I had always planned to watch it, but again, and for anybody out there who has ADD, they know that sitting down for 3 hours and 29 minutes to watch a film is this was a horror movie to me. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I did get through it. Yes. Now the budget for this film was 159 million. It was 209 minutes. They did release in theaters. They made $8 million. Don't let that number fool you. It's not because it flopped. Movies have to be released in theaters for a particular amount of time to be eligible for awards.
Yeah.
So, you know, they released it in theaters, and then because this is a Netflix original, they really went all out for this.
It did. But of course, as we stated, the movie do stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and there's many cameos from a whole lot of other people. You know.
Yeah, they really, just knowing that Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in the cast is really doing a great disservice to this stellar cast. If there's one thing I really enjoyed about this film, was the cast.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you've got like, you know, Robert De Niro from, you know, Godfather. But to me, he will always be Jack Burns from Meet the Parents. You know, you've got like Al Pacino, you know, also The Godfather, Scarface, Carlito's Way. You know, you do have Joe Pesci, Goodfellas, Casino, Raging Bull. Yes. And in fact, Goodfellas, Casino, and Raging Bull was also Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese. So he collaborated with them. But again, to me, he will always be Harry from Home Alone 1 and 2. So, you know, I mean, that's just me, particular. You know, I know, you know, but Home Alone 1 and 2, one of some of my favorite films. I used to watch them every Christmas, along with The Grinch, the Jim Carrey version. There's Harvey Keitel's in here, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. Also, I believe he was he was. I know he was at least nominated for an award for The Piano. Ray Romano's in it.
Yes, like I was actually surprised to see him in it. You know.
Yes.
Like, because you don't see him in movies such as this, or movies maybe few movies in general. You know.
Right. I mean, you're starting to see, though, I think, and I don't want to go too far off the subject, digress too far, but you're starting to see some of the comedy actors who are beginning to branch out into more like drama films. I think having more vehicles or more mediums to do it in, such as like Netflix and Hulu and all that, gives them an opportunity to kind of flex a different muscle. Because if you go into the studios, they're going to say, listen, we're banking on you to be funny.
Yeah.
You know, if we're going to give you, you know, $100 million to make a film, we're not going to give that to you for a drama. So, you know, you're able to.
Somebody tell Adam Sandler that.
He did something Gems. There's a movie that he did that everybody was, well, not everybody. I actually saw a few people talking about it, but I forgot what it is. It's something with Gems in it, but supposedly it was good. I haven't seen it yet.
Either. So I can judge it.
No. But also Bobby Cannavale was in this. He played Skinny Razor. I know him from Boardwalk Empire, Gyp Rosetti. Stephen Graham was in this. He played Tony Pro. He is one of my favorite actors. He played Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire. But I know him from Line of Duty. I mean, he's done a ton of things. But Line of Duty, I believe it's on BBC One. It's a British show. But I would highly recommend it. It's a great show. He played, they basically have a different co-star or a different like guest star every season. Yeah. They had Tandy Newton one season. She was excellent in the show. And he did this, he did one season as well. He was, this is a show about like a unit of police officers who investigate other police officers. And so like something will happen, was causing them to investigate, and then they spend the season investigating. Great show. I believe it's on its sixth season, or the sixth season's coming up. Definitely would recommend it if you can get get BBC One. Most people probably can't get BBC One, but if you can't, I definitely would go out, buy the DVDs. Great recommendation. Jesse Plemons was in this. He played Chucky O'Brien, the adopted son of
Hoffa.
Hoffa. Yeah,
He was played by Al Pacino.
Al Pacino, right? I know him from Fargo. He was Ed Bloomquist in that. There was the guy who played Tony Salerno was Dominique Lombard. I want to say Lombardozzi. I know him from Herc from The Wire. He also played Ralph Capone on Boardwalk Empire. And for those relatively newer fans, he was Benny on Power. Then you had, you could really go on and on. Annie Paquin was in this. You may know her from True Blood or from the latest season of The Affair. Catherine Narducci was in this. She was Charmaine on The Sopranos. Paul Herman was in this, a very small role as Whispers Detello. You may know him from Beansy on The Sopranos. He was also in Heat. He was Sergeant Hines in that, which of course also starred Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. This was an excellent cast.
Yes.
I could really go on and on, but you could spend the whole day, spend 3 hours just listing the accomplishments of this cast, even the ones in people in small roles. I'm like, oh, I know that guy. And these were people who I feel like starred in series that were, because this was a slow burn. That's how it was listed on Netflix, and these were people who were in a lot of crime movies. So a lot of these people were in crime things. So it was just like, we're just picking and choosing our cast from, Sopranos and Heat and all those types of things. So yes, excellent cast. If there's that would be one thing that I would definitely pride this movie on, is the cast. Yes. Excellent cast.
Solid cast, solid performances all around. That is one of the things that they did nailed in this movie. But
yeah, solid performances all around. I would have definitely switched Al Pacino as Hoffa with Stephen Graham. First of all, Stephen Graham looks like Jimmy Hoffa. Like, he has a little bit of that type of look. And going back and watching not performances, but just Jimmy Hoffa in general. I went back, I looked at some clips I wanted to see. Al Pacino is playing Jimmy Hoffa as Al Pacino. He's not playing him like Jimmy Hoffa, so he didn't necessarily get lost in his role. I knew right away I was watching Al Pacino, and I was like, well, was Jimmy Hoffa like Al Pacino? That type of thing. And I went and I was like, no. So I was definitely aware of that. But everybody doesn't necessarily need to go full method whenever they're doing something. I mean, it's still a good performance, but if you're aware of who Jimmy Hoffa is and you're going back and look at clips, you will see the difference. I thought Robert De Niro's performance was it was a little lackluster to me. He was playing like a character who was just kind of like yeah, it was kind of like, kind of, I don't know what the right word for this is, but just very underwhelmed, just kind of going with the flow type of thing.
That's true, because he gets pulled many different directions, and is never really once felt like it was his decision.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, you should do this, or this is going on, you should do this, or I need you to go do this, and he felt like a gopher,
Right. He definitely felt like a gopher in this in this film. So I mean, his performance was very kind of just like ho hum for me. It's still, like, again, it's not that I didn't feel like the cast definitely did a great job. I just feel like there were some performances that I liked more than others. Oh, I should mention too, the guy who played Crazy Joe Gallo is played, but people probably don't know who he is. I do, because I watch a lot of comedy. That's Sebastian Maniscalco. If you've never seen his comedy specials, I would highly recommend them. He is extremely funny. He definitely played Crazy Joe. I won't say that he played him well, because I don't know Crazy Joe Gallo, but he definitely, I did like his portrayal He definitely bought his Sebastian Maniscalco mannerisms to his part. So that definitely did make me laugh.
But similar to the plot, like usually I'll go and give a synopsis of the plot, but since the plot is kind of it's many plots in this
Yes.
movie, but to make a quick summary of the plot, the movie pretty much follows Frank, who's played by De Niro, who is an Irishman who becomes a hitman for the mob, working with Russell, who's played by Joe Pesci, and he pretty much it follows his time with the mob and eventually working with Jimmy Hoffa, with Teamsters, and it's pretty much his recount of everything that happened leading up to and after Hoffa's death, well, disappearance.
Right. I would have definitely enjoyed that movie if I had seen it. That's that was really one of my biggest issues with this film. I felt that they didn't know which story they wanted to tell.
Mm-hmm.
It is supposed to follow Frank, and his time, just his time in his life. Working with the mob and the things that he encounters. But then they just kind of go in different directions. For a movie that's doing that, I feel like they left out a lot.
Yeah.
And also too, you have. I need to take a minute because I'm going to get to that. We need to take a minute to reference the special effects. And I say special effects, but
The effects.
yeah. First of all,
special.
no, there was nothing special about these effects at all. These were really bad. First of all, the only thing that they even attempted to de-age was their faces. They still moved like octogenarians throughout this entire film. Nothing changed about their body structures. In fact, it was I remember Iron Man
Mm-hmm.
when they de-aged Tony Stark. That was that was Oscar worthy compared to what I saw in this. This was bad. Okay, like I'm gonna explain. Like once you see the movie, you're gonna know. But for those who don't, who may not know enough about the main characters, Frank Sheeran was born October 25th, 1920, and he died December 14th, 2003. Okay, so now he meets up with Joe Pesci's character, Russell Buffalino, in about 1955. So Russell Buffalino was born October 29th, 1903, and he died February 25th, 1994. So when you first see them meet up, it's when Frank Sheeran's truck breaks down. Okay, and he's doing this thing where he just doesn't he doesn't know what's going on or whatnot. Russell Buffalino comes over to him and he fixes his car for him. He gets it started because
Super easy, very inconvenience.
Yes, very. Absolutely, there is nothing of he. What was it like? It was timing.
Timing belt.
Yeah, the timing belt. It was loose. He gets the car started right away. Okay. So I'm watching the scene, and then Joe Pesci, who's playing Russell Buffalino, he calls him kid, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what? Because they look the same age.
Yeah.
And or you could say that Joe Pesci maybe looks like 5 years older. Him calling him a kid makes literally no sense.
Yeah, because especially looking at the dates, you said that they met up in like 1930 something.
No, they met up in 1955.
Oh,
This
55.
what makes more sense. When they met up in 1955, Frank Sheeran would have been 25 years old. Russell Buffalino would have been 42. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes you go, yeah, he called him a kid because he was a kid. It also makes sense why he doesn't know about the timing a belt on the car. Because this is another issue that I had with the film. Because if you're going to be telling this man's story, you need to start from the beginning. He went into the Army after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and then he wasn't discharged until 1945. So basically, you have him going in really young, and then then once he gets out, he gets out or whatnot. So it makes more sense about him not really kind of knowing the real world or whatnot. Not to say I don't know anything about cars either. I know I changed my own oil, but only because I have a leak in my oil and it just all flows out. So I just pour more in and then I'm just ready to go. But I mean, it makes more sense to have this older male figure come in and it's just like, yeah, I know what's going on type of thing. As opposed to Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro looking the same age and someone calling one kid. That made literally no sense.
Yeah, because like even in the scene, De Niro still looks like he's 40, 50.
Yes, he does.
Pesci, on the other hand, he can get rid of that. He's supposed to be older.
Right.
But yeah, they really shouldn't be looking the same age.
Not at all. Especially because there's in the real life version, there's a nearly 20-year gap. Yeah, that was ridiculous. It's actually 17 years. They did not look 17 years apart. Yeah. They didn't look no more than 5 years apart. And I'm being extremely generous.
Because like, if you don't know anything about the real life, not characters, but real life individuals, you would think that by Russell calling him kid, you might think, oh, he just this way he talks,
Right.
Because like it's never really said or portrayed in the movie that Joe Pesci's character is much older, than he.
You know why? Because of the de-aging process. They didn't want to let you know because if someone had said Robert De Niro was 25 in this scene, they would probably still be laughing right now. This would have turned The Irishman into a comedy.
True.
I would tell you they had a better technique that they used in Godfather 2. And what they did in Godfather 2 is to de-age Marlon Brando's character, they casted Robert De Niro as a young Vito Corleone. That's how you de-age. You get a different actor who's younger when you're trying to do something that is this drastic.
Yeah.
These guys are in their 70s. I believe Al Pacino is 79. I believe De Niro and Pesci are 76, if I'm not mistaken. You're not going to be able to age a 76-year-old man to 25.
Nah.
Just go ahead and cast someone else in that role.
De Niro is 76.
So 76. And I believe Pacino is 79, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe Pesci is also 76 as well.
Yeah, Pesci is 79.
Mm-hmm. I think Pacino is 79.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Pesci is 76, the same age as Robert De Niro.
77.
Oh, he's 77 now. Okay,
yeah.
So he's probably 76 when the movie was being made. They did a very it was extremely irritating to me watching these scenes because one of the things that makes this hard to tell is the time period because they're de-aging these people, but they look the same age. I don't know what time period I'm watching. They're not getting older. They're looking the same. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really know like what years this was even happening. Yeah. Yes. I saw some comments where people were saying that it was good, and I don't know what movie they saw. Maybe they watched it in Super HD. I don't know. I
Well,
don't.
if there was watching in Super HD, they should really be able to tell that the effects was bad. You know?
Yes.
Maybe it was standard definition.
Yes, maybe it was. Maybe they were watching it in 180p, and it was just like, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't tell the difference. It was, yeah. I did not enjoy the special effects. People were talking about it. It's good. I did not find it good at all, especially knowing that Frank Sheeran was supposed to be 25 years old in that scene, and Russell Buffalino was 42. Um, the other thing, getting a little bit back to um, the scripted the this being about Frank Sheeran. Um, he was in the military. He saw 411 days of combat at a time where the average was about 100 days. Um, he was in the Harbor Army Airborne. He dislocated his shoulder and he transferred to the 45th Infantry Division. He saw the invasion of Sicily, the Salerno landings, the Anzio campaign, landings in southern France, invasion of Germany. And it was during this period of time of his life where he developed this type of nonchalant attitude towards taking human life because of the things that he saw. There were like the revenge killings, just like killing someone because they killed someone on his side. He mentions the orders from the unit commanders in the film about how they would have people like dig their own graves. There were these attempts to dehumanize and degrade the Germans. This is very important. A part of the film that I felt like they left out.
Yeah.
They talked about it for a movie that's 3 hours and 29 minutes long. They left out, in my opinion, the things that mattered most, because you have this guy who's basically delivering meat, and then all of a sudden he decides that, you know what? Why don't I just steal this meat and give it to this gangster?
Yeah.
And then when he does that, then he ends up meeting Russell Buffalino, and next thing you know, he's in the crime world, and then next thing you know, he's killing people. Like it's easier to understand knowing what he's been through. Yeah. So a guy who served a little bit over 4 times the average length of combat service is probably going to come back with some issues. That should have been discussed. This is stuff that I had to look up on my own because I was scratching my head going, why? Yeah. I'm still not sure why he started delivering these steaks instead of doing it for his job and then giving it to this gangster.
Yeah. Because the movie glosses over the fact, because he meets he runs into, I forget what happens. He's out celebrating something, or he's in a club, and he bumps into Skinny, or not. Like for some reason, he's in the place. Skinny is there. The guy introduces him to Skinny, and he says, "I can give you meat," pretty much,
Right.
And all of a sudden, he goes from stealing meat and giving him meat,
Right.
But
I think the book talks about it. I want to say it might have been he also did some business out of there or something like that. There is a reason why he's at that club. Not that the movie took any time to reference it. And if this is supposed to be about Frank Sheeran's life story, I think that would have been important.
Yeah. Because it's like it feels like he's just doing this to suck up to Skinny,
Right?
Like I know you were this mobster guy, so let me cut you this deal, whatnot. It's my job, cut you a deal,
Right.
If that was the case, he could just picked up a contract with him,
Exactly.
Instead of just dealing under the table, But yeah, the movie makes it seem like, oh yes, let me, do this favor for this mobster guy,
A favor he did not ask for.
Yeah.
He just walks over to him and says, "I can deliver you steak, better quality steak."
Yeah.
Now, this is a guy, who has been working this job for years. I don't know. Again, this movie did not explain what time period this was as far as when this happened. I do know that when he was discharged from the military in 1945, that he married Mary Letty, who was an Italian immigrant, and they had 3 daughters. Now, I don't know if he had 3 daughters at this time, or how many he had, or if he was married this time. I'm going to assume so. I don't think you'd be risking your job to deliver steaks to a mobster who didn't ask you to do it. There's nothing in here to say that he was going to be making a lot of money. There's nothing in there that said that there was going to be additional job opportunities. There is nothing to tell you why this man decided that he was just going to just start delivering steaks to Skinny Razor. I'm still waiting. I waited for over 3.5 hours, nearly 3.5 hours, and I still have no answer to that particular question.
Well, maybe the answer is maybe you should stop stealing for your job and sell it to some mobster and get involved in the mob and make some money.
Maybe so. Yeah. Maybe so. Because here's the thing too. They go further on. He obviously gets caught because, I mean, how many times can you steal steaks before something happens? Now, also maybe you caught up on this. I don't know. He's taking these steaks and he's delivering to this mobster. Do they ever discuss what's happening when people are supposed to be getting these steaks and then are not getting them?
No.
Okay, so I didn't miss that part.
No,
okay.
No,
all right, good. So again, something else that could definitely be addressed, because later on, he takes 5, I believe it was, of these large chunks of meat, and the truck is empty. And he's sitting there like, oh, I don't know what happened, type of thing. And the guy was like, well, it's not going to be on me, which ends up in a court case. Now, it is tied. The truck is tied, which they did spend about 2 minutes watching him stick the little tie up his sleeve. I could have done with a lot of other things for that 2 minutes, such as finding out why he was stealing the steaks in the first place or where the other steaks were going. But no, we decided that we were going to watch him slip this up his sleeve. So it ends in a court case, which the cousin of Russell Buffalino, I believe is Bill. Was it Bill?
Bill, yes.
Yeah.
Played by Ray Romano.
Yeah. He gets him off, and Frank Sheeran, Robert De Niro's character, didn't think he should have been able to get off, even though his lawyer says they have literally no shred of evidence to even tie him to this robbery. And even the judge ends up scolding the prosecutor for bringing in an honest working man who's never missed a day of work in. What would make you think you're going to get convicted in a case where they have no evidence? He was acting like this was some sort of miracle.
Yeah.
I don't even know how it got this far if they couldn't prove that he stole the steaks. Again, something else that is just missing. I do believe, though, when he refused to name names, because Bill Buffalino was like, listen, if you did it, if you name some names or whatnot, they'll let you off with warning. Will you be willing to name names? He said no. I think that was a reason why he was willing to introduce him to his cousin, Russell Buffalino, the fact that this guy wasn't willing to name names. I guess he thought maybe he could get some steaks for him as well. Because how many times can you pull this steak heist before somebody goes, well, wait a minute. Like last time we didn't have any evidence. You lose a lot of steaks.
And also, we never find out what happened with him working for the steaks. Yes, we know he goes to work for the mob. That doesn't mean you gotta quit your job.
No, it doesn't.
Because that would make more sense on a cover story or how you bringing in this extra money.
Right.
But somehow he leaves the job, which he doesn't explain why. He just
But again, they only had 3.5 hours, so you know what I'm saying. Like they can't cover everything, James. They had to leave some stuff out. We can't cover why he started to steal the steaks, why he decided to go work for the mob family, why this case happened, We can't cover any of that. We don't have time. It's just 3.5 hours. Okay.
Like one of the things that I did dislike about the movie, because I guess I'm in the middle. You know, I'm
Right.
not like out. I guess I'm more towards the dislike side than the I like it side. But I did feel like it was too long. You know,
Absolutely.
and like I felt like if I had to describe this movie, I would say it's the Irish version of not the Irish version, it's the Italian version of Forrest Gump, just done way worse. You know, because it just feels like he's just recounting different events that happened in his life with no direction. You know,
Exactly.
like if you break it down, there's to me like I feel like there's three different parts. There's the part where they're driving they go to the wedding,
Hmm.
the big road trip, which I feel like you didn't have to show the whole entire road trip.
No, not. And
You know,
they spend time in this film discussing their route about how he's going to be taking this trip. They mention it twice. I didn't even need to hear it the first time. Um, I've never been in a film and seen them give GPS directions. Like he's at a map and he's telling you exactly which route he's going to take to get there. While he's on this route, they spend a lot of time discussing smoking in the car. There's one scene where Robert De Niro, I'm just start calling them by their character names. Frank Sheeran doesn't know whether or not to pull over because Russell Buffalino is, obviously he's asleep. So his wife wants to pull over to get a cigarette break. And so he decides on his own accord that, let's pull over. And then you get to see the girls get out of the women get out of the car, their wives, to smoke. And you get to see Russell Buffalino just kind of passed out. And I'm like, what was the point of any of this?
yeah, no, there was no point whatsoever. You know, like I could dumb out that whole road trip. You know, because yes, they on this road trip to go go to a wedding,
Right.
Bill's daughter's wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and of course on the way there they have some job to take care of. You know,
Right.
but
Just picking up money.
yeah, but we really had to see that? Like
No, we
it
did
was
not.
it was pointless. But then again, you only have 3.5 hours.
Exactly.
You gotta put something.
You gotta put, you know what I'm saying?
But also, I felt like another story or part of the story is him telling the flashbacks of like different things that were going on. You know, like I felt like they were driving. Then, while we're driving, this comes up. Well, let me tell you what happened with that part of
Right.
like it's like the background to the background.
There was a flashback in a flashback, and that almost made me turn the movie off.
You know, and then it's like the present part. You know,
Right.
and like, and I just wish I feel like they could have structured the movie a lot better. Like maybe told it from the beginning. Like because they would really need to know that he's sitting in I guess an old folks home talking to I guess a cop or it never
It never shows
Yeah.
who he's talking to.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I mean, I'm thinking he's breaking the fourth wall. I was like, is this like the old version of Deadpool? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what in the world is happening.
Yeah. Which said Forrest Gump, because Forrest Gump does, he talks, to someone, but it feels like he's telling a story to somebody,
Right.
but we don't get to see who or why he even bringing it up. And the first scene is a long take, which is done pretty good. But what got me is when he finally gets to Frank in his wheelchair, he starts talking, but he's not talking.
Right.
Then all of a sudden he starts talking, picking up where he's talking from.
Exactly.
I'm like, what just happened here? like what?
They threw in everything and the kitchen sink in this film. Anything that you've ever seen in any film is in here somewhere. I mean, it is just so many different techniques, and I really felt like it detracted from this film. You do have what you mentioned uh, with the narrative structure of this film, if you want to call it. It is, I guess, it is a structure. It's they spent a lot of time on Jimmy Hoffa. The Jimmy Hoffa part could have just been a movie all in of itself.
True.
And that's what this is what this movie, what kind of annoyed me about this film is that this movie could have been about the relationship between Russell Buffalino and Frank Sheeran. Mm-hmm. It could have been about Frank Sheeran's life story. It could have been about Jimmy. It could have been a whole movie about Jimmy Hoffa. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of things that this movie could have been about, and instead they just kind of did a little bit of each or a lot of each, and it distracted. Yeah, and it detracted from everything else. Knowing what I know now about Frank Sheeran, because I really had to go look up, because I was like, this movie did him a disservice as far as his life. I had no, like, they really glossed over the fact that he was in the war. It's like one conversation.
Yeah.
And that really sets the tone for this man's life story that a lot of people definitely volunteered the day after Pearl Harbor. Everybody was signing up. And it definitely did affect people who came back and what happened in their lives.
Yeah. Cause like that could have been a good point too. Of like he says he joined the army or he joined the military, but he never said why or when.
Exactly.
And that could have been a big part of his character. Like of him being patriotic. Or whatever reasons they probably gave for him to join. And I also feel like they didn't do anything with his character relations to being in the military,
Right.
Because like you were saying in the book or you read it that he was so detached from humanity that he could kill, and didn't kill. You really didn't get that from in the movie,
Right.
Like he was just he was just it makes him like I killed him, okay, like we didn't see his detachment from it,
And being in that position too during that period of time, when he's discussing about having these soldiers dig their own graves and then killing them, that he was taking orders from his unit commanders. He is used to taking orders from people higher up and doing bad things. Yeah. And so for him then to fall into this crime family where he's going to be taking orders from people higher up and doing bad things, that's a big plot point. And if this is supposed to be about his story, it makes, like, knowing that, I'm like, oh, okay, now it makes more sense. Mm-hmm. But you never get to know that in a movie. I mean, there is a scene where he's talking about it, but it is so small and it's so minute that it doesn't.
It's forgettable.
It doesn't resonate at all. It definitely didn't resonate with me.
Yeah. Because I honestly forgot about it. Like
there's a lot to forget in 3 hours and 29 minute movie. Yes.
I mean, in the 3 hours and 29 minutes of this movie, there's a lot of things in this movie can be forgotten. And I honestly saw this movie twice.
Oh wow, yes. That's ambitious.
Well, once when I decided to review the movie, once back in December, when everybody was talking about the movie, I was like, okay, let me watch this movie.
I saw it for this podcast alone, and I will not be watching it again.
Oh no, trust me, yeah. I don't see myself watching this again, because even though this is a 3 hours and 29 minutes movie, to me it felt like 3 hours and 29 minutes.
It's very disjointed. The storyline was very if knowing what I know about Frank Sheeran now, I feel like I'm kind of mad because of the fact that this is a story I would have watched. Like, I would have really enjoyed seeing this guy's life from the beginning until the end.
Yeah.
Another thing that people may not know about this particular film that um, an idea of De Niro. He brought it to Martin Scorsese. He wanted to tell a story of an aging hitman. That was something that they had talked about a long time ago, like I believe it was like the 80s. And they revived it after De Niro had read I Heard You Like to Paint Houses, or what's the I heard you paint
Yeah.
houses, not you like to paint houses. I heard you like to paint. No, I heard you paint houses. So after he read that book, and he said it was like a very Scorsese had said it was like he could tell De Niro was very
Passionate.
was very emotional about it, to tell the story of this aging hitman. So that's something that you don't get, that you don't know, and then it went through its development phase in 2007. So that tells you how long it took to get this project made.
And this is the final product of that, you know,
Yes, yes, it is.
because I feel like if they just focused on his relationship with Russell and the impact of his family, I feel like that would have been a much better story to tell, especially going with the whole the aging hitman.
Right.
You know, like I feel like that would have been much better because at the end we get this storyline with his daughters that they didn't set up
They
well.
did not earn it. They
Yes,
did not earn it at all.
you know, and they tried to make you feel bad that he's pretty much dying alone, and but like there's a scene where he goes to the bank to see his daughter Peggy or Peggy Penny
It's Peggy.
or Peggy.
Yeah, it's Peggy. Played
and
by Anna Paquin.
and she she walks off and knows him,
Right.
because she's mad about him killing Hoffa years ago. But I
But she
guess
thinks that he's killed
yeah,
Hoffa because when she was young, she watched him beat up a shopkeeper who had manhandled her.
yeah,
And I guess she put together that this is who my father is,
mhm,
which if you saw this man beat up this shopkeeper, you would think that it was two grumpy old men who you would not think hitman after a scene like that. There is
yeah,
nothing about that scene that would make me think afterwards that, yeah, my father is a killer. Look what he did to that shopkeeper. It would be like, yeah, my father probably needs like a wheelchair
yeah,
and he needs to sit down somewhere because if that guy had been 5 years younger, he would have kicked his ass. So, it's like there is that scene is nearly comical.
it is. Just watch him try to kick him, and the bad thing about it, it's a wide shot, so you see everything. Like you at least think, okay, let me hide, try to play it off and fake it with close shots, but nah.
I laughed at the stomps. Like I literally was like, because it just slipped out because watching this happen, which let's just say for argument's sake that she somehow, because again at this time she's like what, like 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah,
She's very young. Again, there's no time period. It's just like figure that out for
yeah,
yourself. Where we are, what time period it is. It's on you. But her putting that together, I still don't know how she did that. There's nothing in there to make
justify.
you
Yeah,
to make you think that there's something going on. And or anything with his family. Again, if you're telling Frank Sheeran's family the story from the beginning to end, the family element is nearly nil.
yeah,
He talks about Peggy, um, um, but his other children you never mentioned. In fact, I told you I thought he had 3 daughters, and you were like, no, he had 4. Remember, there was one in
yeah.
that she was rocking in the scene with the when Jimmy Hoffa gets just Peggy like their special ice cream, and I was like, well, you know what? I forgot it. I I didn't forget the scene. I didn't even really put together the baby. At this point, it's just like I don't even know what these scenes are for. In my head, I'm looking at Peggy and Jimmy Hoffa. I'm not even thinking there's a 4th daughter. And the reason why that's issue is towards the end of the film when he's trying to talk to Peggy. He's like, I just want to talk to you. And she doesn't want to talk to him. He meets with his older daughter. I believe it's Dolores.
She had a name.
Yeah, she had a name.
I didn't know.
I honestly, I don't know if they. Oh, I know where I got that from. I got that from IMDb. That's how I knew that. It was just older daughter in the film, and she's talking about how he didn't know how hard it was for them, and they couldn't bring anybody around because of like who her father was and what he might do.
Yeah, like you could go to him for issues or problems, anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't know that.
nah, because the movie neglects to tell us that story,
Right.
But yet we supposed feel bad, feel sorry, for him that he's going through that.
Right.
But I'm like, why? It's not like we knew this going in, or set up or saw this.
That was set up horribly. Again, this is why I say they didn't earn it. There was nothing about his family other than he had one. And I mean, there were a couple of scenes where he was like, "Hey, I hit the numbers," and so he leaves like his wife some money. When he's about to go out to burn down this laundry, and then it turns out that there was a gangster involved, and that becomes his first hit when he has to kill the person who gave him the money because he neglected to tell him about the gangster who had an interest in the shop, this laundry business.
Which is funny because they don't tell us that that's actually his first hit.
They do not.
Yes, it makes it seem like I guess I will kill him.
Well, I mean, the guy asked me to kill him, so why not? Type of thing. Yeah, it's appalling the amount of things that they left out about a story about Frank Sheeran. Yeah, I think I learned more about Jimmy Hoffa than I learned about Frank Sheeran in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
because the second half of the movie, it feels like Hoffa's story.
Right.
It just feels like Frank was there. He's just there to witness everything. Matter of fact, I feel like the whole movie was just Frank being an eyewitness to everything.
Right.
I feel like it was Russell. Well, even though we don't get much of Russell's story, but we get Hoffa's whole story, and whatnot. But it just feels like it's not Frank's story.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And for a movie, I feel like for a movie of this caliber, especially since somehow, probably because of the cast and the director, it's it was nominated for Best Picture, which is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to review this movie.
No, you just wanted to put me through through this. I was like, what movie you want to do? And he's like, well, I'm reviewing Best Picture, and you had mentioned two that you did, and then you went with the longest one. You went with the longest one.
Well, because we did Parasite, we did Marriage Story. I think we did something else. I forget.
This wasn't the only one left. Yeah, there were others.
Yes.
This was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, including Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor. Pacino and Pesci both got nominations for that at the Academy Awards. It was also nominated for 5 Golden Globes, one of them being Best Picture. It has no wins, rightfully so. Yeah, there had to be. I hadn't seen any of the other ones on the list, I don't believe, but there had to be better movies made because this wasn't it. So I am glad that it didn't win over something that was better because of the fact that it does have a stellar cast. I mean, a great cast. They all did good. Some of them did great.
Some did okay.
Yeah. But it is a stellar cast though, and I feel like sometimes, especially in the society we live in now, when people like something, everybody else jumps on it to co-sign it, to be a part of it. It's like, oh, okay, well, this guy thought it was great. This guy thought it great. Well, I'm going to throw my opinion in there. I'm going to say it's great. And then everybody wants to say it's great. Instead of really taking the time to watch it and go, well, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that we're bringing up, I don't know how someone could explain away. I read a review on Rotten Tomatoes from one of its top critics, and the reviewer said, that Scorsese didn't waste 1 minute. And I'm like, how could you possibly fix your mouth or your pen keyboard or whatever you wrote this review? And I'm using that lightly for this PG podcast. How could you say that he didn't waste a single minute? Did you see the film?
I guess not.
There's no way you can possibly tell me that. The reason I bring that up is because... Go ahead.
Maybe he forgot.
I felt like in every scene there was at least a minute wasted. I felt like in every scene you could have taken away at least a minute and it would have still been fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know where he's coming from with that. But I bring that up because I remember when Dave Chappelle had his special and a couple of people jumped on it and had a very negative portrayal, and then every single critic popped in and was just like negative because it's so easy to pile on in this society. That's what we do. We just pile on. No one really has an individual thoughts because it's like, hey, you're saying that, then I'll say that, and then and maybe people will like my Twitter account too, and maybe they'll follow me, as opposed to actually taking the time and reviewing and saying, well, yeah, some people may be offended by it, but I thought this was funny or I thought that was funny, or whatnot. And of course, then what happened was once it came out for the general public to see. It went a 99 score for the audience review. And then critics were like, oh, well, I guess we better change this review, because then again, now we've got to go the opposite way because the trend is going this way. Again, no individual thought. And I really felt like that is what happened with this particular film. These things were glaring omissions. And I don't know how you could review this film and give it, 4 thumbs and your toes and whatever else up without going, what's going on here?
Because, like, as I was doing my notes and trying to write, a summary of the plot, I found myself like, well, there really is no plot for real. It's just him recounting events, and that's all I feel like. Just a recount of memories, things that happen, incomplete things that happen of that,
Until he gets to the Jimmy Hoffa part, and then he's like, "Oh, you take it from here, Hoffa. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna sit out." Yeah, I've had enough.
You good? Call me once you die.
Yeah. Go ahead, take over.
What?
I'm gonna sit this one out. Go count my money over here. I don't even. Yeah, at that point, it becomes the Jimmy Hoffa story. So yeah, it's. This is a really disjointed film. It is everywhere. I don't want to be too harsh, but it definitely felt kind of self-indulgent in the sense that I can just do whatever I want. Yeah. I can say what I want.
Martin Scorsese.
I'm Scorsese. I've got an all-star cast. You're gonna like it.
Especially after he made those comments about the Marvel movies.
Yes. In fact, I heard someone declare this his MCU film, and they had superimposed Al Pacino, Joe Pesci's and head on superhero bodies and things like that. And it really kind of does this is his throwing everybody in that all these great actors who he's worked with in the past, who have been in crime films, and saying, yeah, we're all here. I'm going to use Robert De Niro in this role he should not be playing in, that they should have got another younger actor to play it. And this is not age discrimination here. He can't play a 25-year-old.
Nah. I can see the later years of his life.
Right.
I can see that.
Yes.
But not the other year.
No. 25? 25?
Well,
no.
You are as young as you feel.
Well.
But no kick said otherwise.
Yeah. Those kick said I'm about to kick the bucket. Oh man, that wasn't a good
Nah,
idea.
not one bit.
You know, but I felt like it was like, well, it's Robert De Niro, and I want to use him for this role, so we just have to figure out a way to do it. And they were like, no, we don't. We could just do what is existing technology and just do it. And like, well, that's terrible. And it's like, well, so what?
Yeah, well, Marvel did it. What can we?
Yeah, they did it better, but
Yeah. Well, Marvel also put extra money in the agent too.
that's true.
Yeah, I don't think 150. I don't think 150 would be enough. I think 150 probably went to the whole cast and crew.
Yeah, I think the budget for this film was 160. I mean, people talk about it ballooning to 170, 180, type of thing, but supposedly it ended at 159 million dollars. But yeah, I listen, for anybody who's listening. Let me explain something to you. I don't see how you could sit there and tell me that was good. That Robert De Niro, in front of his broken down truck, you saw him and said, yeah, he's a 25-year-old. How did you think he was? There's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way.
Like, and I didn't know he was 25 until you said something,
Right.
Because I was thinking, well, maybe he's a middle-aged guy, because he was like, I've been in my job for a long time. He may seem like he's been there for like 20 plus years, especially looking at him, like, okay, maybe he's, in his 40s,
Oh, well, that's being generous. I thought I was thinking Lethal Weapon. I was one day from retirement, then my truck broke down, and then I ended up in the mob.
I'm too old for this. He was literally too old for this movie.
Yes, he was too old for that section of time. They had Marlon Brando, play Vito Corleone in the first film. Mm-hmm. But when they did a younger version, of Vito Corleone, they went with Robert De Niro. It made sense. Mm-hmm. They did not try to de-age Marlon Brando.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can't. It made me laugh when I thought about it. But then maybe they would have done it then and then realized that they shouldn't do it now.
Yeah.
So
like I said, he probably saw Marvel like, if these guys didn't do it and they just, theme park movies, maybe
right.
maybe we as real cinema can, do it better.
And it's weird because I remember him making those comments, or I saw them. I don't really keep up a lot with like entertainment news.
Either.
But the funny thing is those movies tell a better plot than he did in this film. Way better.
They did.
I know what's going on. In those films, they are following a particular character or set of characters, and they have a storyline, and you know what it is, and they're either continuing on with the storyline to a next film. Most of the Marvel films have that, but there is some type of conclusion or resolution to get you to the next point. Mm-hmm. If this was... if Martin Scorsese had done one of these Marvel films, you would have had like Hulk telling a story, and then all of a sudden, Iron Man pops up, and he's talking to him, and then all of a sudden, Batman shows up and just goes, "I got it from here, guys. It's me now." And he does his thing with like Joker and stuff, and then Hulk comes back in the end to die.
Yeah.
Or to take his gamma radiation and hop off to another planet, and you'd be like, I don't even know what I saw. That's what I felt like with this film.
Well, on that note, on a scale from $1 to $15, or you can do a refund, how much will you pay to see this movie?
Well, I'm not through yet.
Oh, you're through?
I'm not through.
Oh.
I'm not through. I'm not through yet. This was 3.5 hours, okay?
I mean, I wouldn't say, well, we can do a 3.5 hours podcast.
Oh, no. Oh, no. It would still have a better narrative storyline than this film did. How long has this podcast been so far?
So far we are hour and 12.
Hour and 12. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're still under. One thing that I did want to mention is that in the film, Franks goes to jail, and he gets 18 years. What they don't tell you is that it got extended to 32. They also don't mention that he was released in 13, and the reason that he was released is Charles Brandt who was very instrumental in getting him released on uh, because of his health. And Charles Brandt was a medical malpractice lawyer. So he gets him out of jail, helps him get out of jail, and then in return he gets the story. It wasn't like I get the story because you got me out of jail, but like, hey, I'm out of jail now, and now he's telling the story, which I think is who he's supposedly talking to when when it looks like he's breaking the fourth wall. Charles Brandt is literally mentioned nowhere in this entire film.
I just got a headache because like you know how much better this movie could have been if they included this element.
Yes,
but I mean I know it's only three and a half hours.
It's only 3.5 hours, James. Come on, you looking for a sequel here?
We could have one.
Yes.
Can we have one?
Yes.
We need the Irishman sequel.
Yes, another 3.5 hours, make it 7.
Yeah. Might as well.
That's an important element that they missed, which would have definitely made the last about 20 minutes, 25 minutes of this film where it's just him like getting a coffin and just kind of walking around. And I'm like, why do I care about any of this? You have not done enough with Frank Sheeran to make me care about this character enough to see him dying off.
Yeah. And that would make a lot more sense instead of having the two detectives or FBI agents walking up to him.
Correct.
That was him. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
No, that wasn't him. That wasn't him. He was. He wouldn't be asking him that question. He is entirely absent from this film. The guy who was instrumental in getting him out of jail after 13 years of an original 18-year sentence that was extended to 32. Then they could have showed them together talking, and that would have made more sense than practically this whole film. And there's so much. there's so much to discuss with this film because that's what happens in the last 20 minutes. But one of the things too, he gets out of jail. I believe he went in 1968. So if he got out in 13 years, you're talking about that would have been about 80, 81, I think. Yeah, 81. Yay for math. But they never really show Frank's time in prison. Throughout this film, they have Frank Sheeran's character, Frank Sheeran, meeting different mobsters. And as he meets them, they will pop up on the screen how they died. For reasons unknown to me to this day, right now, recording this podcast. It really takes some suspense out of this scenario with these guys knowing exactly that, hey, they got shot in the head and they died in 1981, which who cares? I don't even know what year it is. So you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's today, tomorrow, or whatnot because it's not addressed. But some of these deaths actually happened while Frank was in prison or when Frank get out of prison based off of the fact going in 61 and 68, and then getting out 13 years later. It would have been a much better story that as he's in prison, you see these mobsters getting killed or dying off. He gets out, they're still dying off. So basically, like, everything's kind of coming to a conclusion because they're all dying. Frank Sheeran himself died of cancer. I want to say, I think I mentioned it earlier. In 2003 is when he died. I don't know when those people came to him to ask him about Jimmy Hoffa disappearance or death, but it would have made much more sense to see these mobsters get killed off in this way.
Yeah.
I think that was another missed opportunity, and also too they paint Frank Sheeran as a guy who killed Jimmy Hoffa. there are about 14 people who claim that they killed Jimmy Hoffa. So whenever you have someone telling their memoirs or telling their memories, we know that embellishment is likely to happen. Um, Even when people just tell you stories, just in general, especially when it comes to like fighting.
Yeah.
It's always like, they'll be fighting like one 12-year-old and they're like, there was like 15 dudes and they all came at me at once. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I took a hit, but then I just got right back up and I knocked them all out and I ran away. And it's like, but I'm the one taking you to the hospital right now. So, you get that type of narrative. Unreliable narrator is what they use in book terms. So yeah, I was like, why are they talking to him as if he's the only one? It would have made more sense for me personally if they had shown all these other mobsters kind of dying off and him being a person that they're just talking to, because it's like, hey, well, you're like the last one left. Could you at least tell us anything about what was going on, instead of the last 20 minutes of this film just being him?
Nonsense.
Yeah. There was a cameo as a nurse from the girl from Orange is the New Black. I can't remember her name right now. But I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that was probably the most that I actually, in the last like 25 minutes of the film, was like, oh, there's a girl from Orange is the New Black, type of thing.
Hey.
I mean, she was only in the film for like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's only a 3.5-hour film, so, they can't have her in there for so long, But yeah, it's, again, you're telling a story about this man's life, and you've left out this man's life. You have told very, very small parts of it, and then one big part about Jimmy Hoffa. I mean, when they talk about Jimmy Hoffa, they reference his issue with Robert Kennedy and JFK. And his time with the Teamsters, losing it, going to jail, getting back out, trying to. There is a huge section in here that is about Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
And it really leaves out the narrative of. I mean, Frank Sheeran is a bystander in his own story. Yeah, I there's just it's so much.
Instead of the Irishman, it should be called the Hoffa story.
Yeah, they should have really just made this could have been about, they could have called it Hoffa, and just expand it out a little bit on Hoffa. They really wouldn't even have to expand that much, because I mean his story really kind of encompassed a large part of this film. Again, that's why I said this could have been 4 different films, and instead of concentrating on one particular narrative, they just went everywhere with it and just threw, like I said, everything in the kitchen sink, and just said, here's the movie, guys. We've got a great cast. It's Martin Scorsese. You're gonna love this. Yes, you're gonna love it, and you better. And
all 3 hours and a half of it.
All of it.
You're gonna love it.
I think that's it. I mean, there were a few things in there that I did like the killing of Jimmy Hoffa's character. One of the things that you normally see in films are this extra amount of talking whenever there's a killing. People are no, and all this time, and the guy sitting there holding the gun. Normally in these films, there is hesitation on a part of the hitman, or just in a lot of killing movies in general. There is no hesitation on this part, and that was a really great scene. It's very short, it's very succinct, and it is really well done. It is really well done. Hoffa is led into this house. He recognizes it's a trap. He goes to Frank Sheeran, is like, let's get out of here. And as soon as he turns around, 2 to the back of the skull, and he leaves the gun, and he's gone. Frank Sheeran's character is someone who looks up to Jimmy Hoffa character, Jimmy Hoffa, and so having him kill this person, like, is a very, you would think would be a very emotional thing for him. But if you had let us know
Yeah.
in advance that he's been desensitized to killing, it would have been a lot easier to understand how he could have just
So easily.
done it so easily. And the reason that they had him do it is because if he didn't do it, they would feel that he would try to alert him or try to save him, which is not something that they really spend a lot of time discussing in the film.
And plus, well, to me, it made more sense that I don't think Hoffa would expect it.
Right.
And one thing that I was going to say earlier that I forgot is I know we were talking about this the other day about how his daughter Peggy looks up to Hoffa, and idolizes him, and like because in the movie he tries to get her to be feeling towards Russell, but I guess she figured Russell, well, he's a mobster, he kills people, so she was kind of detached to that. But with Hoffa, we were saying like, yes, he's helping people and whatnot, so she looked up to that. But the thing is, he goes to jail for fraud.
Yes, he does.
And and she doesn't feel, I see your idol still.
Exactly.
You don't feel anything about that, but you still mad at your father that he may have had something, may have dealings with his disappearance or death.
Correct.
Like,
and if you go on like she got a vibe, because there's nothing to say that she knew Russell was a mobster, but if you're gonna go off just vibe alone and just say that she just got a kind of a bad feeling from him. Supposedly the first thing that was said to Frank Sheeran from Jimmy Hoffa was, "I heard you paint houses."
Yeah.
So if you like, you have to get that same vibe from him as well. He's basically asking him like, "I heard you kill people, and I need you. I need that type of guy around me." And there's a lot of shiesty things that Hoffa's character is doing. So again, I said character. There's a different thing that Hoffa. The thing it is that these these portrayals may or may not be very accurate. But so she should have gotten that same vibe off of him as well, because Russell tried to do the same thing. He, hey, is there anything that you want? Just let me know. He gives her a pair of skates. Money, yes. So there's no reason why she should have been more accepting of Hoffa's character more than, say, Russell's character. They don't really discuss why.
Yeah.
Again, this would have been something good to know, or something good to explore, than just to have it just done.
Yeah. Like it feels like that. It feels like they want you to believe, or they try to tell you that the reason why she don't like Russell is because he's a monster.
Right.
But
Hoffa's just part of a different mob.
Yeah. Hoffa was essentially part of the mob.
Right.
Like, I mean, he had mob ties.
Exactly.
And especially if, like, the movie shows you this, and especially me being a union Teamster paid member, like, that is one thing that you learn about the union. That union had mob ties.
Right.
So, essentially, Hoffa, yes, is part of the mob.
Exactly.
So, what's the difference between him and Russell? Well, like, I guess because Hoffa is on TV, parading to be for the people, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
And Russell is not. But, essentially, what's the difference?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't. Again, that's something that's just not explored. And there was a moment that we had discussed on the phone when Russell is talking to Frank Sheeran. This is, about the hit on Hoffa, and he's saying that he had to choose between us and Hoffa. But I had said that there was nothing in there that showed that Russell Buffalino and Jimmy Hoffa were like pally.
Yeah.
That was something that they showed at all. So I didn't. It was like I didn't get the relation. And then I know you had mentioned like, well, he's choosing between Hoffa and the mob, but Russell Buffalino was the head of the Northeastern Pennsylvania crime family. So like he was the mob. Like it wasn't like a choice. It was like he was already mob. So I didn't.
Yeah.
Again, this is something else where I'm just like, why is this in here? It doesn't make sense because you have not established something to make this
make sense.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just yet another like throwaway scene. And there's some good acting in this film, but I think one thing that makes it suffer is that so much of it is so unnecessary, or it doesn't make sense, that it's really hard to appreciate the artistry of the scene when you're like, why is this here? What does this mean? And that's what I spent a lot of time doing with this film.
Yeah.
Is just wondering, scratching my head, watching a 3.5 hour a film, 3 hours and 29 minutes. Yes, I don't want to oversell it, and I don't want to hyperbolize. It's just 3 hours and 29 minutes. It's not 3.5 hours. Almost 3.5 hours. Yes. About as close as you can get.
And I know I said this before, but it do feel like 3 hours and 29 minutes. Versus when you watching Endgame doesn't feel like a 3 hour movie. You know, like to me. You know, I'm pretty sure there may be folks who feel otherwise, but right. I feel like with Endgame, like makes you get lost in the story. You know, of course, these are characters that we have grown to love and learn about.
Correct.
You know, but you know, even with the story, even I know Endgame they have little plot holes and whatnot too, but even with those little plot holes, like it doesn't feel like 3 hours, you know. But with this movie, I'm like, I think I stopped twice. I took a break once, but I went to the bathroom one time. But each time I'm like, dang, I still have an hour left, or dang, I still have an hour and a half left. Like, wow! I thought they were watching this for 2 hours already.
Yeah, I my goal was to get to 2 hours, and then I was like, and then I watched the last hour and a half, you know. So I just kind of like sputtered to that 2 hour mark. And I should also mention too that in the film when they were talking about the times people died, when they died, how they died. Mm-hmm. I happened to look up one and it was wrong. So I don't know how that made it in. And this wasn't one of those things like it could have been. I mean, it's a well-known fact that he died later than they say that he did. I noticed also in the film that when Frank Sheeran is having his dinner, Jimmy Hoffa mentions that he got arrested 26 times in a 24-hour period for the local union. We didn't know that, didn't see that, Jimmy Hoffa makes Frank Sheeran the head of the union, but don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. You don't get to see it. There's nothing. He gets this extremely extravagant dinner because he's so great with the union and the locals love him. How would I know that?
Yeah.
Again, they only had 3 hours and 29 minutes to tell the story. So, you know, I mean, how could we... Again, this is what I'm talking about. During this period of time when they're talking about Jimmy Hoffa, this is the Jimmy Hoffa story. Yeah. It's no longer about Frank Sheeran. So the fact that he's the head of this local, getting arrested this 26 times in 24 hours, just everything that happens. He's the head of this local union, and he actually carries out a hit. Another comical hit if you've seen This Is America and how Childish Gambino aims the gun at the back of the guy's head, this is just as comical. He's got these two guns and he's firing them like boom, 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 and his arms are going back and forth.
That reminds me of 70 Sam.
Yes, yes, that is extremely accurate there. Which is crazy because before that there is this great scene of him explaining why you choose what gun, and you know, want this gun to make noise but not too much noise and all this type of stuff, just for him to go into this restaurant and fire off these guns in just this extremely weird way. I don't know why no one recognized him as the head of a local who, when he throws this, when he has this bash, all these people show up, and no one's like, "Hey, that's the guy," you know, type of thing. Also, too, I know that Crazy Joe Gallo may not have been the most, maybe not the most aware person, but I have a hard time believing that he insults a mobster. We all know what happens when those things happen, and that this guy just happens to walk in, Frank Sheeran, who he already knows, who he saw earlier that day, or maybe he did, maybe it was another day, who knows? No, it was the same day because it was still his birthday. And he walks in, no one sees him, no one recognizes him, nothing. And then he shoots, and then boom, he's gone. Yeah. Back to his local, I guess, because still had to finish his shift. He clocked out on his lunch break, to do a hit, and then came back in. So yeah,
like it is really hard to believe that this guy who hangs around Hoffa is can't be recognized by no one.
Right?
Like, oh, that's Frank. I'm like, who? Frank? Oh, snap. Oh well. Oh man.
Yeah, there's again, we really kind of glossed over the Hoffa part, but again, this was supposed to be about Frank Sheeran.
Yeah.
And then there's just this huge diversion over into Jimmy Hoffa for reasons unknown. Yeah. But yeah, I guys, I don't know. I don't know what was happening with this film. There's a scene towards the end. I won't say that he invented this, but I know that he does it very well. Quentin Tarantino will have talks. People are driving in the car, or they're having a conversation that may not necessarily be about what's happening at hand. But it is funny, or it's observational, it's witty, something like that. This movie had a moment like that, and it wasn't any of those things. They're driving Hoffa to the place where they're going to kill him, and they have this extremely long, drawn-out conversation about a fish in the car. I have no idea why this conversation is happening. I don't know what it means. It's just extremely odd. It felt like it was kind of Quentin Tarantino-esque, and I do understand that Martin Scorsese is a great director. He was around long before Quentin Tarantino. I'm not saying he's copying Quentin Tarantino. I'm saying this is where I personally know it from. Yeah, it was another conversation that didn't need to be had about a fish in the back seat, and then could they clean off the fish, and then Hoffa gets in the car, there was a fish back there, but he cleaned it up. There's nothing to even say that he cleaned. That's me. I'm sitting there going like, well, you didn't clean it up.
Yeah.
In fact, nobody cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Frank Sheeran just put something down over the seat on his side. Also, how big was this fish? Was it over the whole back seat? I thought it was just on that particular side where Frank Sheeran was sitting. He was very adamant about, I'm sitting here, which I thought was going to mean something more. I thought maybe he was going to change his mind and shoot the other guy, who was in on the plot to kill Hoffa. That's why he was so adamant about sitting in the seat. But it turns out that he just wanted to sit in the seat where the fish was. I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe he just wanted to sit back there with Hoffa. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why any of these things were happening. It wasn't.
Just does.
Yeah, it just does. So and that's what I mean. Like, there's a lot of things that are in here that definitely didn't need to be in here, that they could have used that period of time to tell something more relevant to the story. It would have been an excellent time to have Frank Sheeran and Hoffa's character to be having a conversation, a very heartfelt conversation that Frank Sheeran knows, I'm about to kill this guy. This is the last time I'm going to see him. It's a guy I look up to, and this is my last conversation that I'm going to have with him. It would have been a great moment to sit back there and have that conversation. But no, they want to talk about a fish in a car. Weird choices in this film. Very, very, very weird choices.
It was like, I actually wonder, now I'm interested in actually reading the actual book. You know, I want to know if that conversation is actually in the book.
The fish story? Yeah. I wonder if that's in there.
I don't think so though.
Yeah, I don't know what they included in the book that wasn't in the movie, and vice versa. It feels like they put the whole book on screen. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many pages the book is though, so I mean, it could have been extremely long.
It could be 329 pages.
Exactly. That makes sense. A page-to-page translation. Yeah, it's, again, like I said, just all around there. Besides the cast, I really didn't find too much that I liked about this film. There were some individual scenes. Towards the beginning of the film, Frank Sheeran's character is having a conversation and he stutters. And I like to see that in this, because you don't normally see that in film. They normally cut that out and people just speak their lines exactly. And obviously if there's something where they miss a line, they just go back and shoot it again. That's not real life. When you're talking, sometimes you're struggling to find a word. Sometimes you fumble over your words. Sometimes you lose your entire train of thought. If this movie had spent the time that it had making things seem more real life, I could have got behind. It didn't. It just was a smorgasbord of whatever they decided that they want. I really felt like they came in each day and said, well, what do you want to do today? And it was like, well, let's do this. All right, cool. It doesn't really fit with yesterday, but who cares? Yeah. Type of thing. You know what? I'm kind of tired of talking about Frank Sheeran. Let's just throw in Hoffa. Let's just talk about Hoffa for a while. Yeah, cool. Let's Hoffa take over. Go sit De Niro down. Tell him he'll just be shrugging his shoulders and going all right a lot. And we'll have Al Pacino come in and do his thing. Yeah. That's how I felt about this film. It's extremely disjointed, and it really felt like it didn't do. It did a disservice to the story that it was trying to tell. I'm not a type of person that believes you have to follow the rules of narrative storytelling. A lot of people tell you that you can't have a lot of dialogue in your film. It should be more showing, more this and but some of my favorite films have a ton of dialogue in it. Kevin Smith always has a lot of dialogue in his films, and I'm always find myself laughing. I'm happy for it, and there are other films as well. But this isn't that type of film. It isn't something where I felt like this. Okay, it's long, but we did these things that we enjoy. It was just long
for the sake of being long.
For the sake of being long, that's why I called it self-indulgent earlier. It felt like it was like, I just want to make the longest movie that you possibly can, and spend a whole bunch of money to do it in the process. Yeah. It didn't really felt like they cared about any of these stories per se. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about this film, The Irishman.
The Irishman.
The Irishman. Man. Yes. We don't have time to tell the Irishman. If we spent 3.5 hours, nearly 3.5 hours on the Irishman, we definitely don't have time to do the Irishman. Yeah.
So, With that,
Yes.
how would you grade this movie?
On the
Scale
scale
of 1 to 15,
um,
or there's always that refund option.
yeah, I think I have too much respect for this cast to get a refund. This story, um, the script, I would definitely want a refund for. In fact, I would want to go back in time, like in Deadpool, like a guy goes back in time.
Mhm.
Like I feel like that needs to be done here. I mean, without the killing, obviously, but just to go back and say, oh no, we need to get somebody else
Yeah.
for this. The man, this is tough because I am trying to decide between $1 and a refund. And I feel like and I know most people are probably saying, well, just to go 50 cents, but no, it's not that, because I really feel like I want a refund, but I'm like, there were some good moments, but it was just like, can I really live off moments? I want a refund. I'm going full refund. Um, yes, full refund. I can't give this a single dime of my money. Yes, 100% refund. In fact, I'm asking the man at Netflix or the Cineplex, wherever you saw this, is there a way for me to go back in time and to not do this film? Is there a way that I can go back in time and tell my younger self that when James suggests doing The Irishman, I go, don't do it, don't do it. It's like, well, what was that like in the since we're talking about superhero movies because of the comments he made, but like when Robin's like, no, in the Batman thing, just tell my younger self like, no, don't do it, suggest something else. Um,
Oh
I would
man.
have definitely believed my older self and been like, yeah, no, we're not, no, I'm not doing it. There's a reason why I haven't watched this film. There was something in me that was telling me that I wasn't going to enjoy it, and it wasn't just the length. There was something I think because I had gone this long and I'd heard nothing about the script. All I heard about was the length and the actors. And when that happens, and people aren't talking about the script, I know I'm like, I'm not gonna like this, because a lot of people out there, they don't care about those type of things. They care about seeing people that they like on screen, and that's enough for them. That's not enough for me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking for a good script. I don't care how much I may like a particular actor or actress. If their movie sucks, it sucks. Um, I'm not the type of person to go see Catwoman because Halle Berry's in it. It sucks. It's a terrible film.
Yeah.
It's a terrible, terrible film. Even though I would have rather sat through that than this, because at least, well, I don't know. I didn't make it all the way through Catwoman. I stopped. I think it was probably a little bit after that basketball scene, which was just ridiculous. So I don't know how.
Spoiler alert: nothing else happens.
But at least it's shorter. Like it's a waste of my time, but at least it's shorter. I mean, but this one did have a great cast, and it did have a couple of moments. If I'm sitting here debating which is a worse film, Catwoman with Halle Berry or The Irishman, it's a terrible film, because I'm having a hard time trying to decide. I know I would have rather sat through Soul Plane. I can tell you that for 100% certainty. Um,
Uh,
I, I don't know how I would have made this better. Um, because I was
throw the whole
thinking,
script away.
huh?
Throw the whole script away.
Yeah. Well,
Start
I was
over.
wondering if maybe this was a story told over like 4 seasons, and then each season focused in on a different aspect. So one season it would have been like Hoffa's story. One season it would have been Frank Sheeran's story. One season it would have been Russell's Buffalino story. And then one season maybe it's like everybody together, and so again like a payoff of seeing these things happen, and they of course cross each other during this period of time, but you've gotten each person's individual story and they had time to tell it, and then they come together, and then here's what you get.
Like the Avengers.
Yes, like the MCU. Just like the MCU.
Maybe he should take more cues from the MCU.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what you really have here. You have a lot of different stories just all wrapped up into one really, really long movie.
Yeah.
None of them are particularly well done. In fact, some of them are done horribly. Um, because you're made to believe in the beginning that this is going to be a story about Frank Sheeran and Russell Buffalino, um, and the relationship that they had, and then sometimes you think it's going to be the Frank Sheeran story, and then you're going to think it's going to be the Hoffa story, then you think it's going to just be like a hodgepodge. Like you just don't know at any given point in time. And I feel like had they taken individual seasons, and just told these stories, that uh, it would have been better. Instead, I want a refund.
Yeah, I guess I was debating myself because I know I was kind of on the fence.
You were on the fence, yes. When I called you, in fact, when we were talking about it on the phone yesterday, I was so offended by this film that I just like, because I was thinking, well, I'll wait until we do the podcast to talk about it. I mean, sometimes when we've done the podcast before, we'll talk about it in advance. You don't want to delve too deep into it because you don't want to stomp all over your material that you have for the podcast, where it sounds rehearsed. Yeah. Even though I will say, I think when I forgot to turn the mic on for that one podcast we did the entire podcast
On lock.
Yes, on lock.
On
Yeah,
lock.
and then my mic wasn't plugged in or something like that. We went back and did it the second time. It did come out, really well, even though we had that material. But yeah, I normally don't like to stomp on the material, but I was like, I just have to say this. I didn't like it, and I think I went on for about like 3 or 4 minutes, and you were pretty quiet, and I was like, oh, he must have really loved it, and I was like, oh, that's fine, because then we'll just, talk back and forth about this thing, and then you were like, well, I'm kind of on the fence. So I was like, oh, so he didn't exactly, love it.
Yeah. Because as you're saying, like there are moments that I enjoyed, like the Hoffa dying scene.
Yes.
Wow, and my battery on my lights went out.
Yes.
I was just saying earlier that I had to charge the batteries, but not today. So otherwise, yesterday I got to charge the batteries.
It is today.
But yeah, like this few scenes that I did love about it, But as you're saying, yeah, like I don't think those moments outweigh the bad.
Right.
And like right now I'm starting to feel like Theo. After really discussing it, I think I'm leaning the opposite way. Because all like I want to like it. Because it is Al Pacino, it is De Niro, it is Martin Scorsese, whatnot. Like I want to like it, but I just can't. So
this was reminding me of Justice League. So when we went to go see Justice League, we came out of the theaters and we were discussing it, and I was like, it's horrible. And you were like, well, I'll give it a C. And I'm just looking at you like, really? A C? Like, I know we spent money on this, but it's okay, and it felt like, well, I want to like this, it's got the superheroes in it, plus I paid money for it, so I really want to feel. And then later on, it was like, yeah, no, it was horrible. It was horrible. So, what do you think?
I would give it a refund.
A refund too.
Yes, a total refund.
Total refund, guys. That's 2 total refunds.
So. Because like it's 3.5 hours of pretty much nothingness. It's just for like a collection of shared stories,
Correct. And I will say this, that as many accolades as this film has gotten, there were people out there who did not like it, or thought it would have been better served if it was shorter. One person said that if they could have lost an hour, and it would have been better. That was David Rooney from the Hollywood Reporter. I know Kyle Smith from the National Review says it's a good film, not a great one. It could have easily been trimmed by 30 minutes or more by tightening up the midsection, which I'm going to assume that he was talking about during that Hoffa period of time. So there were some critics out there who definitely took issue with certain things in this movie, and honestly, I find it really hard to believe that if you're being honest with yourself, that that you can truly believe this is a masterpiece
Yeah.
of a film. If you're gonna go, this is Martin Scorsese, um, and you're putting this up against like The Godfather. You're saying this is on the same level. And I heard that out there being used, and I'm like, everybody, of course, is entitled to their own opinion. But the first thing I thought personally was, well, how much are they paying you? So I guess I see where their $159 million budget went.
Yes.
We're paying off reporters because this is ridiculous. Watching this film, I don't see how you can't call attention to these things that we pointed out. And I know that they're not mentioned in the film because I had to look these things up. Like I actually had to spend 3.5 hours watching this thing, and then I was like, I felt so uninformed that I didn't want to walk in here to do a podcast without at least knowing these certain elements, because I thought, well, maybe I missed it. Maybe I mean, I was paying attention. I was watching the whole film because I'm taking notes. So, but I was like, maybe I just happened missing these things. And so I went to look some of this information up, and it was like, no, that definitely wasn't in there. Nope, that definitely wasn't in there. Nope, that wasn't in it. That wasn't in there either. That's honestly, that's the first time that I learned that this was supposed to be Frank Sheeran's story. I did not know that up until the point that after I looked that up and was like, oh, okay, so it's supposed to be about Frank Sheeran. Well, you did a piss poor job of that, because I did not know that from this film. I just thought that it was just a smorgasbord of different scenes, type of thing. So yeah, I don't know how people can call this a masterpiece based off of that, with a narrative storyline that just doesn't follow any path. It's fine. I've watched a lot of slow burns, so
It was very slow.
yeah, it's a slow burn. I like them. For a person with ADD, you would think that I wouldn't be interested in slow burns. I love them. I watch True Detective. I watch Fargo. I watched The Wire when it was on every season. Finished going back watching the second season, which I thought was a bit better than people gave it credit for. Just a lot of different shows where it takes time to get there. I also watch a lot of British shows, and Line of Duty for one, which I had mentioned earlier, where you really have to get the big payoff at the end, because they're telling these narrative storylines or whatnot, going from scene to scene. But it makes sense though. This didn't make sense. That's the problem. I don't care about your 3 hour and 29-minute runtime if it makes sense. This didn't make sense. I didn't know what you were doing with this film. So that wasn't my problem with it. It was my initial problem with it before I sat down and watched it. But after I sat down and watched it, I was like, it's not doing a good job of its stated purpose.
Well, with that said,
2 refunds.
yeah, 2 refunds, and this podcast is already at 2 hours long.
Yeah. And I'm taking my refund and going to watch Catwoman.
I'm gonna watch Tao.
because I want to be disappointed twice.
I'm gonna watch Tao.
Oh, you're gonna watch Tao? Okay.
Yeah,
well, at least that's on Netflix, so as long as you
Yeah.
have a Netflix subscription, I'd have to.
Because I think the dude's hand have more entertainment.
Honestly, I enjoyed Tao more, to be honest. I mean, it was ludicrous. They don't have a working understanding of how fire, its properties. You can't hide behind a wall, people, and then the fire just blows by you like it's an actual person that just ran by you and was like, "Hey, I was gonna burn that girl, but can't find her now."
Yeah.
So it's that's not how fire works.
Nah.
But still, I enjoyed Tao more. There aren't too many movies that I have seen that I have enjoyed less than this film, because normally most films have more to. This one it has more to offer. Like most films, there are moments that I enjoy, but they're for longer durations of time. This one was just kind of like short burst, and it was not enough.
Yeah. I don't think I gave set up a refund. I don't. The comedy, the rom-com Theo made me watch. I think I did. I'm not sure. I had to go back and check that. I think I gave that a refund. I'm not sure.
Refund.
Or it could be been before I came up with the refund. Well, that podcast, that movie may be the reason why I came up with the
Yeah, I
refund.
you know, when I was here, there was no refund. It was just, you know, a $1 to $15. So when
Yeah.
you was like refund, I was like, oh, I'm glad that option's available. I will definitely be taking full advantage of it for this particular project.
Yeah. But with that said, make sure you subscribe to this channel,
Absolutely.
like this video, share it, and if you disagree with us, you can go and comment, leave a comment. You know, we can debate it down in the comments. You know, uh, because we would love to hear what y'all liked about it or disliked about it.
Absolutely.
Um,
I don't expect everyone to agree with my opinion. I'm more than happy to debate the finer points of this film with anybody who has something to say. Just be constructive is all that I would say. If you are a fan of Al Pacino or Robert De Niro or Joe Pesci or any of these great actors that are in this film, that's fine. I am as well. And I wanted to enjoy this film. But if you're just going to be like, well, you know, it's good, you just don't understand, like, have something behind it
yeah.
in what you're saying, and don't just show up and just say, you know, you should like it or you're stupid if you don't like it, which is what you get a lot on the internet. Let's talk about it. Let's, you know, discuss various things.
Yeah. But, you know, also you can go and subscribe to Dream Cloud Films. I will have that posted up mine here somewhere. You know, it'll be
somewhere.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere.
It's floating in the air right now.
You know, or it also be in the link now in the description below. But until then, I'm James.
I'm Alex.
And we see you next time.